Hello guys, welcome to Pika Fiction. So in this video, we will see what if Ash won the Unova League and Skyla, Elesa, and Iris became his traveling wives. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1, The Ascendant King. The roar of the Virtus Colosseum wasn't a sound, it was a physical weight, pressing down on the chest, vibrating in the marrow. 80,000 people screaming for blood, for victory, for the spectacle of dreams shattering in real time. Ash Ketchum stood in the trainer's box, the concrete cool beneath his boots. Dust coated his face, mixing with sweat to form grim streaks down his cheeks. He tasted copper and ozone. Across the shattered field, Virgil was panting, his usually composed demeanor cracking. The scoreboard looming overhead told a story of desperation. Ash, 2, Virgil, 4, you're cornered, Ash. Virgil yelled, though his voice wavered. His Umbreon stood before him, battered but snarling, its rings glowing with a menacing moonlight. Flanking it was a glacian, ice crystals forming a defensive perimeter. Just forfeit. You fought well, but the math doesn't work. Ash adjusted his hat. He didn't smile. He didn't shout back. He simply exhaled, a long, steady breath that seemed to lower the temperature in the box. Math, Ash said, his voice low but amplified by the microphone clipped to his collar, cutting through the stadium noise like a razor blade. That's your problem, Virgil. You're calculating odds. I'm calculating breaking points. Ash raised a hand. He didn't throw a ball. He snapped his fingers. Crocodile. Earth power. Collapse the center. The red-skinned reptile, who had been waiting with ominous stillness amidst the rubble of the battlefield, slammed its claws into the ground. It wasn't a simple attack, it was a demolition. The structural integrity of the field, already weakened by the previous 10 minutes of bombardment, gave way. The ground beneath Glacian liquefied. Virgil's eyes widened. Jump. Ice beam to create a bridge. Too slow, Ash murmured. Pikachu. Electro ball. The debris. Pikachu, riding on Crocodile's shoulder, didn't aim for the Pokémon. He aimed for the massive slab of concrete upheaval Crocodile had just dislodged. The sphere of electricity slammed into the rock, shattering it into a buckshot spray of electrified shrapnel. It wasn't a direct hit. It was a denial of area. Glacian, mid-air and trying to stabilize, was peppered by the debris, interrupting its attack. Gravity took over. The ice type plummeted into the fissure Crocodile had opened. Now, Ash commanded. The word was soft, absolute. Crocodile lunged, diving into the pit after the falling Pokémon. A cloud of dust erupted. The sound of impact, heavy, brutal, decisive, echoed through the stadium. Silence fell over the crowd. A moment later, Crocodile climbed out of the fissure, dragging an unconscious Glacian by the scruff of its neck. He tossed the defeated Pokémon toward Virgil's feet with the casual disregard of a predator discarding a bone. Ash, 2, Virgil, 3, Virgil recalled Glacian, his hands shaking. You sacrificed positioning for a brawl. That's reckless. It's war, Ash replied, his eyes shadowed. Send out the EV. I know you're saving the trump card. Virgil grit his teeth and threw the ball. His EV materialized, but it wasn't the small, cute creature the crowd expected. It was hardened, scarred, holding a trump card ready to fire. Umbreon, Dark Pulse. EV, Shadow Ball. Pincer Maneuver. Ash didn't flinch. Crocodile, Stone Edge. Wall them off. Pikachu, Ride the stones. Iron Tail. The synergy was terrifying. Crocodile didn't fire the stones at the enemy, he fired them into the ground in front of him, creating an instant fortress of jagged rock that absorbed the incoming shadow energy. Before the smoke cleared, a yellow blur shot over the top of the barricade. Pikachu descended like a lightning bolt from Olympus. The iron tail didn't just hit Umbreon, it cracked the ground beneath him. The impact shockwave knocked Eevee off its feet. Dragon Claw, Ash said. Crocodile smashed through his own stone wall, closing the distance while Virgil was focused on Pikachu. The Dark-type claws glowed violet. It was over in 30 seconds. A dismantlement. A deconstruction of Virgil's carefully laid strategies by pure, overwhelming violence applied with surgical precision. When the dust settled, only Ash's Pokémon stood. The referee's flag went up. The announcer screamed something unintelligible. Confetti cannons fired, choking the air with glitter. Ash didn't cheer. He didn't jump. He walked onto the field, recalled Crocodile, and let Pikachu hop onto his shoulder. He looked up at the VIP box, his gaze piercing through the glass, locking eyes with the league president. He had the crown. Now he wanted the answers. The locker room was a sanctuary of silence, smelling of antiseptic and deep heat spray. Ash sat on the bench, unwrapping the tape from his knuckles. His body ached, a sympathetic resonance with the damage his team had taken, but his mind was crystal clear. The door creaked open. It wasn't his friends. It was a man in a rumpled suit, short and stout, with a face that had seen too many leagues and too many wars. Charles Goodshow. That wasn't a battle, Ash, Goodshow said, closing the door softly. That was an execution. It was efficient, Ash replied, not looking up. Virgil is a good trainer. Giving him room to breathe would have been an insult. Goodshow chuckled, a dry, rasping sound. You've changed, boy. Sinnoh broke your heart. Unova hardened it. I'm done losing because I was too nice to finish the job, Ash said, finally meeting the old man's eyes. You didn't come here to congratulate me, Charles. The trophy ceremony isn't for an hour. Sharp. Goodshow walked over, leaning against a row of lockers. His jovial facade dropped, replaced by a grim weariness. You felt it, haven't you? The rumble deep underground. The static in the air that has nothing to do with electric types. Ash nodded slowly. My aura, it's been screaming since I stepped into Virtus. Something is waking up. The Obsidian Circle, Goodshow whispered the name like a curse. Fanatics. Old money and older blood. They believe the original Unova dragon, the one that split into Reshiram, Zekrom, and Kyurem, was a mistake. They want to put it back together. Ash stood up, his presence filling the small room. Forcibly fusing 3 legendary dragons. That would tear the region apart. It would tear reality apart, Goodshow corrected. They have resources. They have infiltration in the League, the government, the corporations. We can't trust the police. We can't trust the Elite Four, we don't know who is on their payroll. So you came to me, Ash deduced. I came to the strongest trainer in the region who has 0 political ties, Goodshow said. I can give you authority, Ash. Special Champion Task Force. Absolute jurisdiction. But you'll be on your own. No backup coming if you get cornered. Ash walked to his bag, zipping it shut. The silence stretched, heavy and taut. I'll do it, Ash said. But I do it my way. And I choose my own team. Goodshow raised an eyebrow. Anyone in mind? Ash slung his bag over his shoulder, a dark smile touching his lips. I need people who can fly into a hurricane without blinking. And people who can lie to a king's face without sweating. The victory gala was an exercise in excess. Crystal chandeliers the size of Snorlaxes hung from the ceiling, casting prisms of light over the Unovan elite. Waiters moved like ghosts, offering trays of champagne and rare berries. Ash Ketchum hated it. He wore a black suit that fit too well, tailored by a terrified stylist 2 hours ago. The champion's cape hung from his shoulders, heavy velvet trimmed with gold, marking him as the apex predator in the room. He stood near a pillar, swirling a glass of sparkling water, watching the sharks circle. Across the room, Skyla was holding court. The Mistralton gym leader looked stunning in a pilot's dress uniform modified for evening wear, sharp blues and gold piping, slit to the thigh. She was laughing, but Ash could see the tension in her jaw. She was bored. She was surrounded by sponsors trying to buy her image for airlines and cargo companies. Further down, near the orchestra, Elesa was the center of a different gravity. The Nimbasa gym leader and supermodel was a vision in shimmering silver, electric sparks literally dancing in her hair. She was smiling that perfect, practiced smile that never reached her eyes, deflecting questions from a press pack that wanted to know about her next line of clothing rather than her battle strategies. Ash downed his water and set the glass on a passing tray. "Showtime, buddy," he muttered to Pikachu, who was perched on his shoulder wearing a tiny black bow tie. Ash moved. He didn't walk, he cut a path. The crowd parted for the champion, whispers trailing in his wake like the wash of a boat. He reached Skyla first. A heavy-set man in an expensive suit was blocking her path, talking about exclusive contracts. "Excuse me," Ash said. He didn't raise his voice, but the man stopped mid-sentence. Ash placed a hand on the man's shoulder and gently, firmly, moved him aside. "Ash?" Skyla blinked, her blue eyes widening. "I mean, champion. Congratulations." "Cut the title, Skyla," Ash said, his eyes locking onto hers. "You look like you're about to mock-punch this guy." Skyla let out a genuine laugh, startling the people around them. "I was considering an air slash, actually. Cleaner. Walk with me." It wasn't a request. Skyla hesitated for a fraction of a second, then fell into step beside him. Her stride matched his, long and confident. "Where are we going?" "To rescue a spark plug." They navigated the sea of bodies to Elesa. She saw them coming, relief washing over her face for a split second before the mask slid back into place. "Champion Ketchum," Elesa purred, her voice silky. "Coming to steal the spotlight?" "I'm stealing you," Ash said flatly. He extended an arm. Elesa stared at it, then up at him. She saw something in his eyes, a seriousness that terrified her slightly. She hooked her arm through his. "Well, that's the most interesting offer I've had all night." Ash led them away from the center, toward the high balcony doors. The cool night air hit them as they stepped outside, the noise of the party muffling behind the thick glass. The balcony overlooked the virtuous skyline, fireworks still popping in the distance. Ash walked to the railing, leaning on it. The two women stood behind him, exchanging a confused glance. "You two are wasting your time," Ash said, looking out at the city. "Excuse me?" Skyla bristled, crossing her arms. "I run the most efficient cargo hub in Unova. And you," Ash pointed at Elesa without looking back, "are the face of the region. But you're both bored. I saw you in there. You're wolves pretending to be lapdogs." Elesa dropped the smile. Her posture shifted, becoming sharper. "Careful, Ash. Insulting us isn't a great victory speech." Ash turned around. The moonlight cast hard shadows across his face. He looked older than 16. He looked dangerous. "There's a war coming," Ash said. "Not a tournament. A war. An organization called the Obsidian Circle is trying to resurrect the original dragon. They have shadow Pokemon. They have killers. And I have to stop them." The silence on the balcony was absolute. "Why tell us?" Skyla asked, her voice dropping an octave. "Because I need a vanguard," Ash looked at Skyla. "I need someone who owns the sky. Someone who can drop a squad of elite trainers into a hot zone and dogfight legendary birds if necessary. I need your aggression, Skyla." He turned to Elesa. "And I need a diplomat who can smile while holding a dagger. We need funding, intel, and access to places I can't break into with brute force. I need your manipulation, Elesa. Elesa stared at him, her breath hitching. No one had ever asked for her mind like that. Men wanted her face, her body, her fame. Ash wanted her ruthlessness. You're asking us to commit treason, Elesa whispered. Operating outside the league. Sanctioned treason, Ash corrected. Good Show signed off on it. But if we fail, we die. And no one will write songs about us. He stepped closer, invading their personal space. The air crackled with his aura. I don't want followers. I want partners. I want the strongest women in Unova watching my back because I know for a fact I can't do this alone. Skyla looked at Elesa. A silent communication passed between them, a spark of adrenaline, of shared madness. Skyla looked back at Ash, a feral grin spreading across her face. I was getting sick of paperwork, Skyla said. When do we fly? Tonight, Ash said. Elesa sighed, smoothing her silver dress, but her eyes were gleaming with a dangerous light. I suppose I'll have to cancel my photo shoot in Castelia. Pity. I assume this task force has a budget. My silence is expensive. Unlimited, Ash promised. Then I'm in, Elesa said. Ash. The shout came from the balcony doors. The glass slammed open. Iris stood there, wearing a puffy pink gown she clearly hated. Her hair was a wild mane, and her eyes were furious. Aksu was clinging to her hair, looking equally distressed. You win the league, disappear for 2 hours, and then I find you out here plotting with them? Iris stomped forward, pointing a finger at Ash's chest. And you didn't even tell me you were leaving. Ash looked at the Dragon Master in training. She was strong, yes. But she was still a kid in her heart. Iris, Ash said gently. Go back to the party. No. Iris stomped her foot. I heard you. War. Shadow Pokemon. You think I'm just going to let you go have all the fun? I'm the future Dragon Master. If there's a dragon involved, it's my business. It's not fun, Iris, Ash snapped, his voice cracking like a whip. People are going to die. This isn't a sparring match. And you think I'm weak? Iris challenged, her hand hovering over a pokeball at her waist. You think I'm just a little kid? Ash stared at her. He saw the fire. He saw the raw, untapped potential that Drayden saw. But it was undisciplined. Prove it, Ash said. What? Prove you belong here. Ash gestured to Skyla and Elesa. They know the stakes. They just signed their lives away. You want in? Hit me. Iris blinked. Here. In a dress. An enemy won't wait for you to change, Ash said coldly. Attack me. Right now. You and Aksu. Put me on the ground. Iris hesitated. She looked at Ash's open stance. He wasn't reaching for a pokeball. He was standing there, undefended. I can't attack a human. Then go home, Ash turned his back. Dragon Rage. Iris screamed. It was instinct. Pure, reactive fury. Aksu leaped from her hair, mouth glowing with blue fire, and unleashed a stream of chaotic energy directly at Ash's back. Skyla gasped. Elesa took a step back. Ash didn't turn. He didn't dodge. He raised his left hand, palm open, behind his back. A pulse of blue aura flared from his skin. The dragon rage hit his hand and shattered. The energy dispersed harmlessly into sparks, washing over his suit without singing a thread. Ash slowly turned around. His eyes were glowing a faint, ethereal blue. Good reflex, Ash said. But hesitation kills. You hesitated, Iris. Iris was trembling, staring at his hand. You stopped it with your hand. I told you, Ash lowered his hand, the glow fading. I'm not the same trainer you traveled with. If you come with us, you listen to me. When I say move, you move. When I say fight, you kill. Can you do that? Iris looked at Aksu. The little dragon was panting, terrified but resolute. She looked at Skyla and Elesa, seeing the respect in their eyes for the man standing before them. She swallowed her pride. She swallowed her fear. I can do it, Iris said, her voice small but steady. Ash held her gaze for a long moment, searching for any crack in her resolve. Finally, he nodded. Pack your bags, Ash said. Meet us at the airfield in 1 hour. Skyla is flying us out. To where? Elesa asked, the diplomat already analyzing the logistics. Ash looked north, toward the mountains where the ancient myths slept. The abyssal ruins, Ash said. We have a wake-up call to deliver. Skyla smirked, leaning against the railing next to him, her shoulder brushing his arm. The contact lingered. Aye, Captain. Elesa stepped to his other side, the scent of ozone and expensive perfume enveloping him. Don't make me regret this, Ash. Ash looked at his new inner circle. The ace. The star. The dragon. The only thing you'll regret, Ash said, is that we didn't start sooner. Chapter 1 End. Chapter 2, Wings of Iron. Heart of Volt. The cargo bay of the Mistralton Queen vibrated with a low, bone-shaking hum. It wasn't a passenger jet, it was a military-grade transport modified for heavy haulage, smelling of hydraulic fluid and recycled air. Ash sat on a crate secured to the floor, reviewing a holographic map projected from a device Goodshow had given him. The map was a mess of red zones and shifting topography. You're trending, Elesa said, her voice cutting through the engine drone. She was sitting opposite him, legs crossed elegantly despite the bucket seat. The glow of her hollow caster illuminated her face in harsh blue light. She swiped a finger across the air, dismissing a screen. The headlines are, Creative. Champion abducts gym leaders. Love Polygon or Secret Society? Is Ash Ketchum the new villain? Let them talk, Ash muttered, zooming in on the desert sector north of Route 4. Confusion buys us time. Confusion tanks stock prices, Elesa countered dryly. I've already had 3 sponsors threaten to pull their contracts. I told them I was on a spiritual retreat to find my inner thunder. They bought it, but only just. You owe me a very expensive dinner when we survive this. If, Skyla's voice crackled over the intercom. If we survive this. Buckle up back there. We're dropping below the radar ceiling. It's going to get bumpy. The plane lurched. Gravity seemingly vanished for a second before slamming back down with double the force. Iris, huddled in a corner with Aksu tucked into her hair, turned a shade of green that matched the bulkhead. I hate machines, Iris groaned, gripping the safety webbing. Why couldn't we fly on Dragonite? Because Dragonite shows up on thermal imaging like a bonfire, Ash said, not looking up from the map. And Skyla's plane has stealth coding. We need to hit the drop zone before the obsidian circle knows we've left Virtus. You talk like a soldier, Iris muttered, eyeing him warily. It's weird. Ash finally looked up. His eyes were tired, dark circles forming underneath them. The league was a game, Iris. There were rules. Referees. Doctors on standby. Where we're going, the only rule is survival. The plane banked hard to the left. The cargo bay lights flickered red. LZ in 2 minutes. Skyla shouted. I can't land this beast on the dunes, so it's a hot drop. Ramp opening in 30 seconds. Ash stood up, the magnetic soles of his boots engaging with a metallic clank. He signaled to Pikachu, who scrambled up his arm and settled into the hood of his tactical vest. Gear up, Ash ordered. Elesa stood, checking the seal on her belt where 6 pokeballs rested. She adjusted her yellow jacket, looking less like a model and more like a gunslinger. Iris stumbled to her feet, slapping her cheeks to banish the nausea. The rear ramp hissed and began to lower. The roar of the wind was deafening. Sand and grit swirled into the bay, stinging their eyes. Below them, the Unova desert rushed by, a blur of ochre and jagged rock under the moonlight. "Jump!" Ash commanded. He didn't wait. He sprinted off the edge of the ramp, diving into the howling void. They landed in a cluster of rock formations known as the Relic Castle outskirts. Ash rolled as he hit the sand, absorbing the momentum, and came up in a crouch. Beside him, Skyla touched down with the grace of a bird, her flight suit's microthrusters flaring to cushion the impact. Elesa and Iris followed, their landings rougher but functional. The Mistralton Queen roared overhead, banking sharply to return to a holding pattern at high altitude. Silence rushed back into the desert, heavy and oppressive. "Clear," Skyla said, checking a wrist-mounted scanner. "Heat signatures are minimal. Just wild Darumaka and Sandile." "No," Ash whispered. He stood perfectly still, his eyes closed. The wind tugged at his cape. "Something's wrong." "My scanner is state-of-the-art, Ash," Skyla said, tapping the screen. "Your scanner looks for heat." Ash opened his eyes. They were dilated, focused. "I'm looking for intent." He spun around, facing a ridge of sandstone 50 yards away. "Pikachu. Iron Tail, 6 o'clock. Pika." The electric mouse launched from Ash's shoulder just as the air shimmered. A cloak field dropped. 3 figures clad in matte black armor materialized from the rock face. A weevil lunged from the shadows, claws glowing with night slash, aiming directly for Ash's throat. Pikachu intercepted it mid-air, steel tail meeting dark claws with a shower of sparks. The impact blew a crater in the sand. "Ambush!" Elesa screamed, instinctively reaching for her belt. "Zebstrika, take the stage. Excadrill, go!" Iris shouted. The desert erupted into chaos. The 3 armored figures didn't speak. They didn't announce their attacks. They simply released their Pokémon, a Bisharp, a Tyranitar, and a Hydreigon. These weren't normal Pokémon. Their eyes were devoid of light, a dull, flat gray. They moved with jerky, unnatural speed. "Shadow Pokémon," Ash growled. He didn't step back. He stepped forward. Crocodile, Charizard. Front and center. The 2 powerhouses materialized with roars that shook the dunes. "Skyla, take the air." Ash barked, his voice cutting through the noise. "Keep that Hydreigon off us." "Elesa, blind the Tyranitar." "Iris, bury the Bisharp." "On it." Skyla released her Swanna. She grabbed the bird's legs as it took off, swinging herself up onto its back in one fluid motion. Air/barrage. Suppress that dragon. Ash ran. He didn't run away. He ran toward the 3 hunters. "Ash, what are you doing?" Iris screamed, watching her Excadrill lock blades with the Bisharp. "Get back." Ash ignored her. The hunters were controlling the shadow Pokémon via gauntlets on their wrists. Tactical logic: remove the controller, neutralize the beast. One of the hunters, a tall man with a scar running through his lip, saw the champion charging. He smirked and drew a serrated combat knife. He didn't expect the trainer to fight. Trainers stood in the back. Trainers gave orders. Ash slid under a hyper beam that scorched the air above his head. He closed the distance. The hunter thrust the knife. Ash parried the strike with his forearm guard, the metal screeching. He didn't stop. He drove a knee into the hunter's gut, doubling him over, then followed with a savage right hook that cracked the man's visor. The hunter collapsed, gasping. Ash grabbed the man's wrist, ripping the control gauntlet off. Instantly, the Tyranitar roared in confusion, its movements becoming sluggish. One down. Ash yelled. But the other two hunters adjusted. They weren't just beast masters, they were assassins. Target the boy, the second hunter shouted. The weevil, which had been engaging Pikachu, broke off and sprinted at Ash. It was too fast. Ash turned, but the ice type was already in the air, claws extended. Charizard. Ash didn't look. He just called the name. A wall of orange flame slammed into the space between Ash and the weevil. Charizard didn't use a move, he used his body, interposing himself. The weevil raked its claws across Charizard's belly, drawing blood, but the fire lizard didn't flinch. He grabbed the weevil by the head and slammed it into the sand. "Thanks, buddy," Ash gasped. But the third hunter had flanked them. He raised a wrist-mounted launcher. A dart hissed through the air. Ash's aura flared, a warning spike of cold dread. He twisted his body, but not fast enough. The dart grazed his ribs, tearing through the Kevlar vest and slicing skin. Pain, hot and white, shot up his side. Ash! Skyla screamed from above. She dove. Swanna folded its wings, dropping like a stone. Skyla didn't use a move. She unclipped a heavy wrench from her belt, a tool for plane repairs, and as Swanna pulled out of the dive 10 feet above the hunter, Skyla let go. She dropped onto the hunter, boots slamming into his shoulders. The man crumbled under the impact. Skyla rolled, came up with the wrench, and swung it hard against the third hunter who was aiming a pistol. Crack. The fight stopped. The three hunters were down. The shadow Pokémon, severed from their control signals, went berserk for a moment before collapsing, their energy reserves overloaded by the forced rage. Ash stood in the center of the carnage, clutching his side. Blood was seeping between his fingers, dark and slick in the moonlight. Pikachu was at his feet instantly, ears flat, sparking with concern. "I'm fine," Ash wheezed. Iris stared at him, her hands trembling. Her Excadrill was panting nearby. You fought him. Hand to hand." "They tried to kill us, Iris," Ash said, his voice hard. "This isn't a tournament." Elesa walked over, recalling Zebstrika. She looked at the unconscious men, then at Ash. Her face was pale, the carefree mask completely gone. "We need to move. The noise will attract more." "Cave," Skyla pointed to a fissure in the rock face. 500 yards. Defensible. She walked up to Ash. She didn't ask if he was okay. She grabbed his uninjured arm and slung it over her shoulder. "Walk," Skyla said. "Don't argue." The cave was small, damp, and smelled of old earth. Outside, the wind howled, scrubbing away the evidence of their battle. Ash sat against the cave wall, shirt removed. The wound on his ribs was a jagged gash, not deep enough to hit an organ, but deep enough to bleed freely. Skyla knelt beside him, a first aid kit open on her lap. She worked in silence, cleaning the wound with antiseptic. Her hands, usually controlling the yoke of a plane with rough precision, were surprisingly gentle. Elesa stood at the cave entrance, keeping watch, though her eyes kept darting back to Ash's torso. It was a roadmap of scars. Burn marks from flamethrowers, faint white lines from claws, bruises that never quite faded. Iris was sitting by a small fire Charizard had lit, hugging her knees. She looked young. Terrified. "You have too many scars for a 17-year-old, Skyla murmured, applying a butterfly closure to the cut. "Occupational hazard," Ash grunted, wincing as she tightened the bandage. "This one," Skyla traced an old, star-shaped scar on his shoulder. "Mutuo." Ash blinked, looking at her. "How did you know?" "I read the reports. The classified ones Good Show gave us." Skyla met his eyes. Her blue eyes were fierce, burning with a mix of anger and something softer. "You've been doing this since you were 10. Saving the world. Getting hurt. Someone has to, Ash said. It doesn't have to be you alone. Not anymore. Skyla finished the bandage and sat back on her heels. She didn't pull away. She stayed close, her knee brushing his thigh. Ash looked at the three women. Iris, shaken but resolving herself. Elesa, vigilant and calculating. Skyla, steady and capable. I didn't think they'd send assassins this early, Ash admitted, his voice low. I put you all in danger. We chose to come, Elesa said from the doorway, not turning around. Don't insult our agency, Ash. We knew the risks. I didn't, Iris whispered. Everyone looked at the dragon trainer. I didn't know it would be like that, Iris said, her voice trembling. That man, he tried to stab you. He wasn't battling. He wanted you dead. Ash leaned forward, ignoring the pull of his stitches. That's why I told you to go back, Iris. This is the Obsidian Circle. They don't want badges. They want power. And they will kill anyone who stands in their way. Iris looked up, tears in her eyes. But you fought back. You hurt him. To protect you, Ash said simply. Iris fell silent. She looked at Aksu, then at the fire. The childish naivety that had defined her journey with Ash was burning away, replaced by the cold reality of the night. I'm staying, Iris said, wiping her eyes. I'm not running away. But, you have to teach me. Not how to battle Pokemon. Teach me how to fight them. Ash nodded solemnly. I will. Skyla cleared her throat, breaking the tension. She reached into her pack and pulled out a ration bar, tossing it to Ash. Eat. You lost blood. Ash caught it. Thanks, Skyla. She didn't move away. In the cramped space of the cave, the air between them felt charged. The adrenaline of the fight was fading, leaving behind a raw, heightened awareness of each other. You were crazy back there, Skyla said softly, her voice dropping so only he could hear. Jumping off the ramp. Charging a guy with a knife. You have a death wish, Ketchum. I trust my team, Ash said, looking at her. I knew you'd catch me if I fell. And I knew you'd watch my back. Skyla's breath hitched. She reached out, her hand lingering over the fresh bandage on his ribs. It wasn't a medical touch this time. It was possessive. Don't make a habit of it, she whispered. I don't like my partners getting damaged. Ash smirked, a tired, genuine smile. I'll try to dodge faster next time. Do that. Skyla lingered for a second longer, her eyes searching his, before she stood up and moved to check her equipment. Ash watched her go, then glanced at Elesa. The model caught his eye and gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. They were alive. They were bloodied. But for the first time, they were a unit. Ash leaned his head back against the stone, closing his eyes. The pain in his side was a throbbing reminder of the stakes. But as he drifted into a light doze, surrounded by the warmth of his Pokemon and the presence of his team, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. He wasn't fighting alone. Chapter 2 End. Chapter 3, The Abyssal Echo. The descent wasn't a journey, it was a burial. They had followed the coordinates extracted from the hunter's gear to a sunken depression in the shifting sands of the desert resort. There, half buried under centuries of grit, lay a heavy stone seal marked with glyphs that didn't belong to modern Unova. Ash didn't waste time with puzzles. Crocodile. Dig. The ground shook as the intimidation Pokemon bored through the sandstone. When the dust cleared, a gaping maw of darkness awaited them, exhaling air that smelled stale, metallic, and impossibly old. Now, they were 300 feet underground. The beam of Ash's shoulder-mounted flashlight cut through the gloom, illuminating walls of smooth, black obsidian. This wasn't a natural cave. It was a corridor, perfectly geometric, stretching into the infinite dark. It's quiet, Skyla whispered. She was walking point, her swana out and alert, wings glowing faintly to provide extra light. Too quiet. No Zubats. No Woobats. Nothing lives down here. Nothing biological, Ash corrected. He was walking in the center of the formation, his aura flared out like a sonar net. Keep your guard up. The walls are humming. Elesa walked close to him, her usual confident stride shortened to careful, testing steps. The claustrophobia was setting in. The weight of the earth above them felt like a physical hand pressing on her chest. I hate this, she murmured, adjusting the collar of her jacket. Give me a runway. Give me a stadium. But this, being buried alive. It's barbaric. It's history, Iris said. Her voice echoed strangely. She was trailing behind, running her hand along the glyphs etched into the obsidian. These symbols, they're older than the darkest timeline of Oplucid. They tell a story about the Grey God. Suddenly, the silence was shattered. Not by a roar, but by a voice. It came from everywhere and nowhere, bleeding through their comms, vibrating the speakers on their belts, even resonating in the bone conduction of their earpieces. The Grey God is not a story, child. It is an inevitability. Ash froze, holding up a fist. The team stopped instantly. Who is this? Ash demanded, his voice calm but hard. A student of history. Just like you, Champion Ketchum. The voice was smooth, cultured, and terrifyingly calm. I am Valerius Thorn. And you are trespassing in the tomb of the future. Thorn, Ash tested the name. The ghost of the Elite Four. I heard you were erased. Erased. Such a clumsy word. I was, repurposed. Tell me, Ash. Do you know why the original dragon split? Truth and ideals, Iris answered instinctively. Propaganda, Thorn scoffed. It split because it was weak. Because humanity could not handle perfection, so we shattered it into manageable shards. Reshiram and Zekrom are mere batteries. Kuram is the empty shell waiting to be filled. I intend to fill it. You're talking about unmaking reality, Elesa said, her voice trembling slightly but regaining its steel. You're insane. Am I? Look forward, Miss Elesa. See what the past has left for us. The comms clicked off. Ash stepped forward. The corridor opened up into a massive, cavernous chamber. In the center stood a colossal door, sealed with a complex locking mechanism made of 3 spinning rings of stone. But standing between them and the door were the Guardians. They weren't Pokemon. They were clay and magic. 3 Golurks, but twice the size of any natural specimen, their chest seals glowing a menacing crimson instead of the usual amber. Hovering above them was a swarm of Sigilif, their unblinking eyes tracking the team's movement. Ancient constructs, Skyla swore, unclipping a pokeball. They don't feel pain. They don't get tired. Defensive formation. Ash barked. The constructs attacked. The Sigilif unleashed a barrage of psybeams, multicolored lances of energy that strafed the ground. Skyla didn't wait for orders. Swana, bubble beam. Create a refraction screen. Unpheasant, aerial ace, target the eyes. Skyla's birds took to the air, dancing through the psychic fire. The mist from the bubbles scattered the light, confusing the ancient targeting systems of the Sigilif. On the ground, the massive Golurks began to charge. The sound was like a freight train. Elesa. Trip the legs. Ash commanded. Imalga, discharge. Elesa threw her hand forward. The small flying squirrel glided out, wrapping itself in electricity, and zoomed between the legs of the lead Golurk. The static shock didn't hurt the ground type, but the sudden flash blinded its sensors. Crocodile, crunch. Take the knee out. Ash's crocodile surged forward, jaws clamping onto the stone knee of the construct. With a savage twist of his neck, Crocodile shattered the joint. The giant fell. But the other two were closing in. One raised a massive fist, glowing with shadow punch, aiming to flatten Iris. Iris stood frozen. The sheer scale of the construct, the ancient aura of it, paralyzed her. Iris. Move. Ash's voice roared over the din. She didn't move. She stared up at the descending fist. A blur of yellow and black slammed into the construct's chest. Pikachu used Iron Tail, driving the giant back a step, but the recoil sent the small mouse tumbling. Ash was there in a heartbeat. He grabbed Iris by the back of her vest and hauled her out of the impact zone just as the stone fist pulverized the floor where she had been standing. He didn't let her go. He dragged her behind a pillar of obsidian, pressing her against the cold stone. Dust rained down on them. Look at me. Ash grabbed her shoulders. His eyes were blazing blue with aura. I can't, Iris hyperventilated. They're not alive. I can't connect with them. I can't read their hearts. You don't need to read them, Ash hissed, shaking her slightly. You need to break them. You are a dragon master, Iris. You command the wildest, most destructive force in nature. Why are you scared of a pile of rocks? I'm not you, she cried. I'm not a champion. No, Ash said, leaning in, his forehead almost touching hers. You're Iris. And right now, that door over there. It has a dragon lock. I can feel it. Only you can open it. If you don't step up, we die here. Thorn wins. He pulled back, his expression softening just a fraction. I trust you. Haxorus trusts you. Show them why. Something snapped in Iris's eyes. The fear didn't vanish, but it hardened into anger. She nodded. Cover me, she whispered. Always. Ash turned back to the battle. Skyla, Elesa. Buy us 30 seconds. Full power. Copy that. Skyla yelled, doing a barrel roll to avoid a flash cannon. Ash sprinted back into the fray. Pikachu, Electro Ball. Aim for the chest seals. That's their power source. While Ash and the older women drew the fire of the constructs, turning the chamber into a light show of electricity and aerial maneuvers, Iris ran toward the massive door. She skidded to a halt in front of the rings. It was a puzzle of draconic energy. She placed her hands on the cold stone. She closed her eyes. Don't look for a heart, she told herself. Look for the flow. She felt it. A dormant current of dragon energy, waiting for a key. Haxorus, she screamed, releasing her partner. Dragon Pulse. Channel it through me. Haxorus roared, placing its claws on the door beside her. A beam of violet energy didn't attack the door, it flowed into the grooves. Behind her, Ash was fighting like a demon. He was physically weaving between the Golurks, directing Crocodile and Pikachu with telepathic speed. A Sigilif dived at him. Ash didn't have a Pokémon ready. He flared his aura, creating a physical shield for a split second, enough to deflect the Psybeam. Iris. Now. Ash yelled, taking a glancing blow from a stone hand that sent him skidding across the floor. Open. Iris screamed. The rings aligned. The dragon energy surged. With a grinding sound that shook the foundations of the earth, the massive doors groaned and began to part. The constructs froze instantly. Their security protocol had been overridden. Their eyes dimmed. Silence returned to the chamber, heavy with dust and ozone. Ash picked himself up, wiping blood from his lip. He walked over to Iris, who was sagging against Haxorus, panting. You did it, Ash said. Iris looked up at him, a tired, proud smile breaking through the grime on her face. I did. Good job. Ash patted her head, a gesture he used to do, but this time it carried the weight of respect, not condescension. He turned to check on the others. Skyla was recalling her swana, checking the bird's wings for damage. Elesa was leaning against the wall, her face pale, eyes wide. She was shaking. Ash walked over to her. "Elesa?" She flinched when he approached. I'm fine. Just the noise. The enclosed space." Ash saw through the lie. It wasn't just claustrophobia, it was the reality of violence. She was a gym leader, yes, but she was a performer. This was war. He stepped into her space, blocking her view of the rest of the room. He created a small, private world between them. "Look at me," Ash said softly. Elesa looked up. Her violet eyes were shimmering with unshed tears. "You held the line," Ash said. "That amalgam maneuver saved my legs. You did perfect." "I felt useless," she whispered. "My hands are shaking, Ash. Look." She held out a trembling hand. Ash took her hand in his. His grip was warm, rough, and steady. Adrenaline. "It happens to everyone. Even me." "You don't look scared," she murmured. "I'm terrified," Ash admitted, thumb rubbing her knuckles. "If I mess up, you all get hurt. That scares me more than any dragon." Elesa stared at him. The vulnerability in his eyes that had just stared down a giant golem, disarmed her completely. "You're a strange man, Ash Ketchum," she breathed. "So I've been told." The moment hung in the air, fragile and charged. Elesa leaned in, just an inch, seeking something, comfort, validation, or perhaps just to feel alive. "Guys," Skyla's voice cut through the moment. She wasn't jealous, she was urgent. "You need to see this." Ash squeezed Elesa's hand once, then let go. They walked through the open doors. The inner chamber was a library. Or a laboratory. Walls were lined with crystals that hummed with data. But in the center was a mural, preserved perfectly. It depicted a dragon. But not Res Hiram, Zekrom, or Kuram. It was a single entity. A gray beast with wings of fire and lightning, and a chest that seemed to contain a void. It was terrifyingly beautiful. Underneath the mural, on a stone pedestal, lay a depression. It was shaped like a wedge. "The DNA splicers," Iris whispered, recognizing the shape from legends. "This is where they were kept." "They're gone," Ash said, running his hand over the empty spot. "Thorn beat us to it." Observant, Thorn's voice returned, echoing in the chamber. "I took them years ago. While the League played their sports, I was preparing." A hologram flickered to life in the center of the room. It was Thorn. He was sitting in a high-backed chair, stroking a Persian that looked sickly and wrong, another shadow Pokemon. "But you have served a purpose," Thorn continued. "You opened the door. The energy signature of a Dragon Master was required to unlock the final database. Thank you, Iris." Iris gasped. "You used us." "Efficiency," Thorn smiled. "Now, I have the location of the vessel. The Kurum remains. It is in the giant chasm, as suspected, but now I know the frequency to wake it." Ash stepped toward the hologram. "We're coming for you, Thorn." "I'm counting on it," Thorn's image leaned forward. "Bring the champion. Bring your task force. The original dragon hungers for strong souls. It will need a meal when it wakes up." The hologram fizzled out. The chamber went dark, save for the flashlights. "He played us," Skyla slammed her fist against the wall. "He wanted us to come here." "No," Ash said. He turned away from the mural, his face a mask of cold determination. "He thinks he played us. But he just made a mistake." "What mistake?" Elesa asked. "He told us where he's going," Ash said. "Giant chasm. He thinks he's invincible. He thinks we're just annoyances." Ash looked at his team. Iris was angry, her fear replaced by a desire for redemption. Skyla was ready to burn the world down. Elesa had found her footing, her gaze steady. "We're not going to arrest him," Ash said. "We're going to hunt him." "Where to next?" Iris asked, clutching Aksu. "Mistralton," Ash looked at Skyla. "We need air superiority. If he's going to the giant chasm, he'll need heavy transport for the equipment. We're going to cut off his supply lines." Skyla grinned, a predatory expression that matched Ash's. "My turf. I like the sound of that." Ash walked out of the chamber, his cape billowing in the stale air. He didn't look back at the empty pedestal. He looked only at the path ahead. The king had his army. Now, they needed a battlefield. Chapter 3 End. Chapter 4, High-altitude politics. Mistralton City didn't smell like nature, it smelled of high-octane fuel, ozone, and ambition. The wind here was constant, a relentless force that stripped the weak and left only those who knew how to lean into the gale. Inside Hangar 4, the largest private bay in the airfield, sparks showered down from the fuselage of the Mistralton Queen. Mechanics moved like ants, welding armor plating over the cargo hold. Ash leaned against a stack of crates, watching Skyla work. She wasn't supervising from a distance, she was under the wing of her Swana, a wrench in hand, grease smeared across her cheek. She wore a tank top and cargo pants, her flight suit tied at her waist. She looked less like a gym leader and more like a mechanic fighting a deadline. "Flux capacitor on the port engine is misaligned." Skyla shouted over the grinding noise of a power saw. "If we hit Mach 2 with that vibration, we'll disintegrate before we reach the giant chasm." "I'll fix it," a mechanic yelled back, terrified. Elesa walked up to Ash, holding a tablet. She looked out of place in the industrial grit, her heels clicking on the concrete, but her expression was grim. "The news is getting worse," Elesa said, scrolling through a feed. "The League has issued a statement. They're distancing themselves from you. Ash Ketchum is operating independently. Translation: if you die, we don't know you. If you break something, you pay for it." "Expected," Ash said, not taking his eyes off Skyla. "Politicians hate variables." Speaking of politicians, Elesa nodded toward the hangar doors. "We have company." The heavy bay doors rolled open. A black limousine drove in, flanked by 2 police cars. Out stepped Mayor Miles, a man whose suit cost more than Ash's entire childhood home. He looked like he was sweating, despite the air conditioning of the car. Skyla saw him. She dropped the wrench with a heavy clang. The noise silenced the hangar. "Miles," Skyla said, wiping her hands on a rag. She walked to meet him, her posture shifting from mechanic to predator. "You didn't book an appointment." "Skyla," the mayor began, his voice echoing in the cavernous space. "This has to stop. The city is in a panic. You have him here." He pointed a shaking finger at Ash. Ash pushed off the crates and walked forward. The police officers put hands on their holsters. Pikachu's cheek sparked. "At ease," Ash said softly. The aura in his voice hit the officers like a physical weight. They froze. "Ash Ketchum," Mayor Miles stammered, trying to regain authority. "You are bringing war to my city. I have reports of unlisted aircraft circling the perimeter. Mistralton depends on trade. If we become a battlefield, we starve." "You're already a battlefield, Mr. Mayor," Ash said, stopping beside Skyla. "You just haven't heard the shots yet." "I am revoking your flight clearance," Miles turned to Skyla. "And I am suspending your gym leader status effective immediately pending a psychological evaluation. You're grounded, Skyla. Send him away, or lose everything." The threat hung in the air. This was Skyla's life. Her grandfather's legacy. The gym wasn't just a job, it was her identity. Skyla looked at the mayor, then at the hangar full of her crew, then at Ash. Ash didn't say a word. He didn't plead. He just watched her, trusting her. Skyla laughed. It was a sharp, biting sound. You think you can ground me, Miles? Skyla stepped closer, towering over the politician. I am the Air Force of this city. Who defends the cargo lanes from rogue flying types? Me. Who runs search and rescue during the typhoons? Me. You want to fire me? Go ahead. But when the sky falls, don't call my number. This is insubordination. Miles spluttered. Whoop whoop whoop. The air raid siren cut him off. It wasn't a drill. It was the high-pitched wail reserved for a catastrophic incursion. The radio on Skyla's belt screamed. Tower to leader. We have bogeys. 12, no, 20 unidentified contacts. They're coming out of the sun. They're bombing the runway. Boom. The ground shook. Dust rained from the ceiling. Outside, a plume of black smoke rose into the blue sky. Get down. Ash shoved the mayor behind a crate just as the skylights of the hangar shattered. 3 metal birds dove through the broken glass. Skarmory. But their steel wings were painted matte black, and their eyes glowed with the dull gray of the shadow process. They weren't just flying, they were strafing the hangar with flash cannon fire. Civilian defense. Ash roared. Iris, get the workers and the mayor to the bunker. Elesa, keep them off the transport. On it. Iris grabbed the mayor by his collar. Move it, old man. Elesa, cover fire. Elesa released her zipstreaka. Shock wave. Create a perimeter. Ash turned to Skyla. The argument was forgotten. The politics were Ash. There was only the mission. Can you fly? Ash asked. Skyla grinned, her eyes wild with adrenaline. Try and stop me. She whistled. Swana, who had been perched on the scaffolding, dove down. Skyla leaped, catching the bird's neck, and swung onto its back without breaking stride. Ash, I need a heavy hitter on my wing. These Skarmory are flying in a phalanx formation. I can't break their line alone. Ash grabbed a pokeball from his belt, one he had transferred from Oak's lab immediately after the league. Charizard. Ash threw the ball upward. The flame Pokemon materialized in a burst of fire, roaring a challenge that rattled the remaining glass in the windows. Ash scrambled onto Charizard's back. Let's clear the sky, Ash said. The air above Mistralton was a chaotic swirl of smoke and steel. The Obsidian Circle had sent a specialized squadron. These weren't mindless beasts, they were a precision strike team. 20 Shadow Skarmory were flying in a tight V formation, acting like a single entity. They were dropping steel flechettes, razor-sharp feathers that shredded the runway tarmac, grounding any commercial flights. They're trying to pin us down. Skyla shouted over the wind. She was banking Swana hard to the left, dodging a volley of air cutter attacks. If they destroy the runway, the Queen can't take off. Break their formation. Ash yelled. Charizard, flamethrower. Center mass. Charizard unleashed a torrent of white-hot fire. It struck the center of the Skarmory formation, but the steel birds rotated, their wings interlocking to form a reflective shield. The fire washed over them harmlessly. They're coordinated. Ash cursed. They have a hive mind. Then we act unpredictable. Skyla's voice was static in his earpiece. Ash, on me. The blue sky drop. That's a suicide maneuver. Do it. Skyla pulled Swana into a vertical climb, going straight up into the sun. The Skarmory squad pursued, their target lock fixated on the gym leader. Wait for it. Ash muttered, urging Charizard to follow in the Skarmory's blind spot, beneath their tails. They climbed to 10,000 feet. The air grew thin. Ice began to form on Ash's eyelashes. The Skarmory were struggling, their steel bodies heavy. Now! Skyla screamed. She cut her ascent. Swanna flipped backward, diving straight through the formation of pursuers. Hurricane! Skyla commanded. Swanna flapped its wings, generating a massive, swirling vortex of wind in the center of the enemy squad. The turbulence shattered their formation. The Skarmory scattered, spinning out of control. Charizard, Dragon Tail. Pick them off. Ash and Charizard became a blur of orange and green. They wove through the chaotic hurricane, slamming the disorganized Skarmory with tails that glowed with draconic energy. Metal crumpled. Shadow Pokémon fell from the sky like stones. It was a massacre. The synergy between Skyla's piloting and Ash's brute force was perfect. But the Obsidian Circle had a backup plan. From the cloud cover above them, a massive shadow descended. A shadow Archeops, ancient, fast, and enhanced with tech. On its back rode a masked hunter with a shoulder-mounted railgun. He wasn't aiming at Ash. He was aiming at Skyla. Skyla, pull up. Above you. Ash screamed, his aura flashing red. It was too late. The railgun fired. A bolt of concentrated energy slammed into Swanna's right wing. The bird shrieked. The wing buckled. Smoke poured from the feathers. Skyla was thrown from the saddle. She didn't have a parachute. She was a gym leader, she trusted her Pokémon. But Swanna was spiraling down, unconscious. Skyla was falling. 12,000 feet. Skyla. Ash didn't think. He didn't calculate. Charizard, dive. Max velocity. Charizard folded his wings, turning into a missile. But the gap was too wide. Skyla was terminal velocity, plummeting toward the airfield. The hunter on the Archeops was circling, preparing to finish Ash off while he was distracted. Ash looked at the distance. Charizard wouldn't reach her in time. Pikachu, take the helm. Ash stood up on Charizard's back. Ash. Pikachu panicked. Keep Charizard steady. Ash jumped. He pushed off Charizard's back, launching himself into the void. He angled his body, arms tight to his sides, diving faster than the dragon, faster than the plane, faster than fear. The wind roared in his ears, deafening him. His vision blurred. He focused solely on the small blue figure falling below him. Come on, come on. He flared his aura, not to attack, but to reduce his own wind resistance. He became a bullet. He caught up to her at 5,000 feet. Skyla was conscious. She was watching him come, her eyes wide, accepting her fate. She reached out a hand. Ash grabbed it. He pulled her into his chest, wrapping his arms around her waist, twisting his body so he was underneath her. Gotcha, he shouted over the wind. You idiot. Skyla screamed, tears streaming from her eyes. Now we both die. Not today. Ash looked up. Charizard. The dragon was there. Charizard had continued the dive, timing it perfectly. He swooped under them, leveling out with a bone-jarring deceleration. Ash and Skyla slammed into Charizard's back. Ash took the brunt of the impact, grunting as the air left his lungs, but he held on to Skyla. Pull up. Pull up. Ash gasped. Charizard spread his wings. The G-force was immense. The world went gray. They skimmed the rooftops of the hangars, so close Ash could see the individual rivets, before shooting back up into the sky. The hunter on the Archeops was lining up another shot. Pikachu. Thunderbolt. Fried chicken. Ash roared. Pikachu, clinging to Charizard's neck, unleashed the anger of a god. A bolt of lightning the size of a tree trunk arched across the sky, instantly vaporizing the Archeops tech and sending the hunter crashing into the bay. The remaining Skarmory, leaderless and broken, fled. Ash slumped forward against Charizard's neck. Skyla was shaking in his arms, her grip on his vest so tight her knuckles were white. "We're clear," Ash whispered. "We're safe." They landed on the tarmac. The fires were being put out by water types. The medics were running toward them. Ash slid off Charizard and helped Skyla down. Her legs gave out. Ash caught her, holding her up. "I'm okay," Skyla said, her voice trembling. "I'm okay." She looked at Swanna, who was being tended to by Nurse Joy nearby. The bird was battered, but alive. Then she looked at Ash. He was bruised, wind-burned, and bleeding from a reopened cut on his cheek. "You jumped," Skyla said. "It wasn't a question. You jumped off a dragon at 12,000 feet. You were falling," Ash said, as if that explained everything. Mayor Miles ran up to them, followed by news crews that had gathered during the attack. The cameras were rolling live. "Skyla!" Miles shouted, his face red. "Look at this destruction. This is exactly what I said would happen. You are finished. I am seizing the gym." The cameras turned to Skyla. The microphone was shoved in her face. Skyla straightened up. She pushed her hair back from her face. She looked at the mayor, then at the wreckage of the enemy drones, then at Ash. Ash stood slightly behind her, silent, letting her take the stage. "You're right, Mayor," Skyla said, her voice clear and amplified by the boom mics. "Mistralton is a target." She reached to her collar and unpinned the badge, the symbol of the Mistralton gym leader. It glinted in the sunlight. "The obsidian circle isn't going to stop because of paperwork or politics," Skyla said, looking directly into the camera lens. "They almost killed me today. The only reason I am breathing is because of him." She pointed at Ash. "Ash Ketchum is fighting a war that you are too scared to admit exists," Skyla continued. "You want my resignation? You have it." The crowd gasped. Miles's jaw dropped. "I am no longer the gym leader of Mistralton," Skyla declared. She threw the badge at the mayor's feet. "My duty is to the skies of Unova, not to your budget." She turned to Ash, her eyes blazing with a mix of adoration and fierce resolve. She grabbed him by the lapels of his vest and pulled him down into a searing kiss. It wasn't a gentle peck. It was a claim. It tasted of adrenaline and survival. Flashbulbs erupted. The reporters went feral. Skyla broke the kiss, breathless. She rested her forehead against his. "I am the wings of the champion," she whispered, loud enough for the mics to catch. "Where he flies, I fly. Anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me at 30,000 feet. Ash smiled, wrapping an arm around her waist. He looked at the cameras, his eyes cold and challenging. "We're leaving," Ash said. "We have a dragon to catch." Elesa and Iris were waiting by the Mistralton Queen. Elesa was smirking, already typing on her phone to spin the narrative. Iris was beaming, giving a thumbs up. As they walked toward the plane, Skyla leaned into Ash. "You know," she murmured, "catching me was the easy part. Dealing with me full-time. That's going to be the real challenge." "I like a challenge," Ash replied. The ramp closed. The engines roared. The Queen lifted off, leaving the mayor and the old life behind in the dust. Next stop, Nimbasa. The Gilded Cage. Chapter 4 End. Chapter 5, The Gilded Cage. Nimbasa City was a jewel that gleamed too brightly. To the untrained eye, it was a paradise of neon, amusement parks, and high fashion, the beating heart of Unova's culture. But to Ash Ketchum, standing on the penthouse terrace of the hotel suite Elesa had secured under a false name, it looked like a circuit board overloaded with voltage. "Stop fidgeting," Elesa's voice came from the bedroom doorway. You've faced down legendary dragons, Ash. A tuxedo shouldn't defeat you. Ash turned. He was wearing a midnight blue tuxedo, tailored to within an inch of its life. It hid the bandages on his ribs and the holster for his tactical pokeballs beneath the jacket. He tugged at the collar. Dragons don't care if my tie is straight. The people at this gala, they eat weakness. Elesa stepped into the light, and for a moment, Ash forgot about the mission. She wore a gown of liquid silver that seemed to move on its own, shimmering like chainmail made of moonlight. Her signature headphones were gone, replaced by diamond drops that caught the city lights. Her hair was swept back, severe and elegant. She was no longer the gym leader, she was the queen of Nimbasa. She walked over to him, her movements predatory and graceful. She reached out, swatting his hands away from his tie, and began to adjust it herself. Magnus Vane, Elesa murmured, her eyes focused on the knot. Shipping magnate. Philanthropist. And, according to the data Skyla pulled from the crashed Skarmory, the man financing the Obsidian Circle's tech. He's hosting the Celestial Gala tonight. We go in, Ash recited the plan, his voice low. We play the happy couple. I distract Vane. You access his private server in the study. We find out where they're moving the equipment for the ritual. And we do it without summoning a Charizard to burn the building down, Elesa finished, tightening the tie. She looked up, her violet eyes locking onto his. This is my arena, Ash. In the wild, you lead. In the ballroom, you follow me. Can you do that? Ash looked at her. He saw the tension behind the makeup. She was terrified that her world, her sanctuary of beauty, was rotting from the inside. I'm yours, Ash said simply. Elesa's breath hitched. A flush rose to her cheeks, not from rouge, but from the raw intensity of his surrender. She smoothed the lapels of his jacket, her hands lingering on his chest. Good, she whispered. Then let's go steal some secrets. The Vane estate was a fortress disguised as a palace. Security was tight, private contractors with Machamps at the gates and psychics scanning the crowd for hostility. Aura suppression, Ash muttered as they stepped out of the limousine. Keep your thoughts loud and shallow. Think about the champagne. Think about the music. He offered his arm to Elesa. She took it, her grip tight. Smile, darling, she said through her teeth as the paparazzi flashed their bulbs. You're the champion. You own this sidewalk. They swept inside. The ballroom was a sea of velvet and silk, filled with the murmur of gossip and the clinking of crystal. It was suffocating. Scanning, Skyla's voice crackled in Ash's microscopic earpiece. She was perched on a rooftop half a mile away with a sniper scope. Heat signatures are normal in the ballroom. But the East Wing, lots of guards. That's the target. Copy, Ash tapped his earlobe, disguising it as a scratch. Where is Iris? Ash murmured to Elesa as they grabbed flutes of sparkling wine from a passing waiter. Kitchen staff, Elesa replied, nodding politely to a famous Pokestar Studios actor. She's accidentally spilling soup on the security detail to rotate their shifts. She hates the apron, by the way. Better than the dress, Ash smirked. Ah! The man of the hour. A booming voice cut through the crowd. Magnus Vane approached them. He was a large man, rotund but solid, wearing a white suit that made him look like a jovial iceberg. His smile was wide, but his eyes were flat, dead things. Champion Ketchum. Vane extended a hand. And the radiant Elesa. What an honor. I didn't know you two were acquainted. Ash took the hand. He didn't squeeze, he just let his hand rest there, heavy and immovable. He used a pulse of aura, just a flicker, to taste the man's intent. Greed. Cold, slimy greed. And fear. We're keeping it quiet, Ash said, using the charm Elesa had drilled into him. Politics, you understand. But for a cause like yours, Magnus? We couldn't stay away. Charity, Vane chuckled, withdrawing his hand. Yes. Raising money for displaced Pokemon. A noble cause. Very noble, Elesa purred, stepping closer to Vane, effectively cutting Ash out of the visual line. I was actually hoping to discuss your logistics network, Magnus. My fashion line is expanding to Kalos. I need a partner I can trust. Vane's eyes glittered. Greed. Is that so? Well, business never sleeps, even at a party. Perhaps later. Why wait? Elesa touched his arm. Ash is terrible at business talk. He just wants to see the buffet. Why don't you show me your office? I hear you have a Van Gogh. Vane hesitated. He looked at Ash, analyzing the threat level. Ash played the part. He looked around the room, bored, eyes glazing over. If you guys are going to talk numbers, I'm going to find the shrimp. Vane laughed, reassured. A warrior's appetite. Please, enjoy. Elesa, my dear, this way. As they walked away, Ash's demeanor shifted instantly. The boredom vanished. He turned his back to the room, scanning the reflection in a window. Iris, Ash whispered. They're moving to the east wing. Clear the hallway. On it, Iris whispered back. Oops. Dropped a tray of scalding chowder. So clumsy. Ash waited 10 seconds, then moved. He didn't walk toward the east wing directly. He moved in a spiral, chatting with guests, laughing at jokes he didn't hear, slowly drifting toward the service entrance. Inside the study, the air was thick with the smell of cigars and old money. Magnus Vane poured 2 brandies. Elesa stood by the fireplace, her heart hammering against her ribs. She had planted a bug on the doorframe as they entered, a localized jammer to loop the security camera feed. So, Vane said, turning with the glasses. Kalos. A lucrative market. Cut the act, Magnus, Elesa said. Her voice dropped the sultry purr. She turned to face him, her expression ice cold. I know about the shipments to the giant chasm. Vane froze. The glass in his hand didn't tremble. I beg your pardon. The obsidian circle, Elesa stepped forward, her heels clicking on the hardwood. You're moving tunneling equipment and cryogenic stasis pods. You're funding a terrorist organization. Vane stared at her for a long moment. Then, he smiled. It was a hideous expression. Terrorists? No. Visionaries. Vane set the glass down. And you, my dear, are a very nosy model. You think you can walk in here and blackmail me? I don't want money, Elesa said. I want the encryption key to your shipping manifest. Now. Or what? Vane sneered. You'll shock me. My security is specifically insulated against electric types. He pressed a button on his desk. Guard. Nothing happened. Vane frowned. He pressed it again. Security. They can't hear you, Ash said. Vane spun around. Ash was sitting in the high-backed leather chair behind Vane's desk, legs crossed, reading a file. He hadn't made a sound entering. Nice chair, Ash said, not looking up. Uncomfortable, though. Bad for the back. How did you get in here? Vane backed away, reaching for a pokeball on his belt. Don't, Ash warned. The air in the room grew heavy. The shadows in the corners seemed to stretch. You have a Persian in that ball. Level 45. Nose slash and payday. If you release it, I will break its legs before it touches the ground. Vane's hand hovered, trembling. The sheer pressure of Ash's presence was suffocating. This wasn't the smiling boy from the TV. This was the warlord. Elesa, Ash nodded to the computer. Get the data. Elesa moved. She plugged a drive into the terminal. Her fingers flew across the holographic keyboard. Firewall is heavy. Give me 2 minutes. You won't get away with this, Vane sputtered, sweat beading on his forehead. Thorn knows you're here. The building is already sealed. We know, Ash said calmly. He stood up. That's why we're leaving the hard way. Beep. Got it, Elesa pulled the drive. It's worse than we thought, Ash. They aren't just waking Curum. They have the DNA splicers. They're moving them tonight. The ritual is at dawn. Tonight? Ash's eyes narrowed. Suddenly, the room went dark. The heavy steel shutters slammed down over the windows. Red emergency lights bathed the study in a blood-colored glow. Hisses. Gas began to vent from the ceiling. A green, acrid smoke. Neurotoxin. Elesa coughed, covering her mouth with her silk sleeve. Paralysis agent. Masks. Ash commanded. He pulled a rebreather from his tuxedo pocket, a small, sleek device, and tossed one to Elesa. Vane was laughing, backing toward a hidden panel in the bookshelf. You breathe, you fall. My chandelier loves sleeping targets. Pikachu, thunderbolt the panel. Pikachu leaped from Ash's shoulder, a yellow streak in the red light. The lightning bolt fried the keypad Vane was reaching for. The bookshelf remained closed. Now you're stuck in here with us, Ash said, stepping through the gas. Vane panicked. He threw his pokeball. Kill them. Shadow Persian. The cat materialized, its eyes glowing with the corrupt gray light. It hissed, a sound like tearing metal, and lunged at Elesa. Elesa was typing on her wrist comp, trying to unlock the shutters. She couldn't dodge. Ash moved. He didn't use a Pokemon. He stepped into the path of the Shadow Persian. As the beast swiped with claws that could shred steel, Ash caught its wrists. Human hands against shadow claws. Ash grunted, his boots sliding on the floor. His aura flared blue, protecting his skin. With a roar of effort, he twisted his hips and threw the Persian across the room. It slammed into Vane, knocking the magnate unconscious. Elesa. The window. Ash shouted. It's reinforced. Blast-proof. Not against this. Ash grabbed a heavy marble bust from the desk. Lucario style. He channeled his aura into the stone, making it glow blue. He hurled it at the shuttered window. Crash. The stone, reinforced by aura, punched through the steel shutter and the glass behind it. The night air rushed in, clearing the gas. Jump. Ash ordered. We're on the 45th floor. Elesa screamed. Skyla. Ash tapped his comms. Catch. He grabbed Elesa's waist and vaulted out of the shattered window. They fell into the neon abyss of Nimbasa City. The wind whipped Elesa's dress around them. She buried her face in Ash's chest, squeezing her eyes shut. Scree. A massive white shape swooped out of the darkness. Swana, carrying Skyla, matched their fall speed. Ticket for 2. Skyla yelled, extending her hands. Ash grabbed Skyla's forearm. The jolt was wrenching, but Skyla's Swana banked hard, turning the fall into a glide. They swung underneath the bird, dangling over the city streets. Did you get it? Skyla shouted. We got it. Ash yelled back. Dawn. They're doing it at dawn. Then we have 6 hours to get to the giant chasm. Iris's voice came over the comms. I'm at the rendezvous point with the van. Get down here. Skyla guided the bird down to a dark alleyway where a black van was waiting. They landed heavily. Ash let go, helping Elesa regain her balance. Her silver dress was torn, her hair a mess, but she was alive. She looked at Ash. He was adjusting his cufflinks, checking for injuries. He looked at her and grinned, a wild, reckless grin. "Nice party," Ash said. Elesa started to laugh. It was a hysterical, relieved sound. She grabbed his lapels and kissed him hard, right there in the alleyway, oblivious to the garbage and the sirens wailing in the distance. "You are insane," she whispered against his lips. "I know," Ash said. "Let's go save the world." The Queen's quarters. 2 hours later the Mistralton Queen was airborne, tearing through the night sky toward the frozen north. The mood in the cabin was somber. The adrenaline had faded, replaced by the crushing weight of the deadline. Ash sat in the cockpit jump seat, watching the clouds rush by. Skyla was piloting, her face grim. Elesa walked in, having changed into her tactical gear, black leather and yellow accents. She held 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to Ash. "Vane will talk," Elesa said softly. "I uploaded his files to the International Police before we jumped. Good show is handling the cleanup." "Doesn't matter," Ash stared at the horizon, where a faint purple glow was beginning to emanate from the north. "Thorn has the splicers. He has Curum. He doesn't need money anymore." Elesa sat on the armrest of his chair. She placed a hand on his shoulder. "We have a problem, Ash," she said. "The data, it says the fusion process requires a human conduit. A binder." Ash looked at her. "What?" "The splicers aren't enough," Elesa explained, her voice trembling. "To fuse 3 dragons, you need a soul strong enough to hold the consciousness of the original dragon. Someone who has connected with Reshiram and Zekrom before." Ash went still. "N," he whispered. "They have N," Elesa confirmed. "Thorn captured him weeks ago. That's who they're sacrificing." Ash crushed the paper cup in his hand. The hot coffee spilled over his fingers, but he didn't flinch. "Faster," Ash said to Skyla. Skyla looked back, seeing the look in his eyes, a terrifying mix of guilt and fury. "I'm redlining the engines, Ash. We'll be there in 3 hours. "Not fast enough," Ash stood up. "If N dies, if they use him to make that monster, Unova dies with him." He walked out of the cockpit, heading to the cargo bay where his Pokémon were resting. He needed to prepare. He needed to be perfect. Elesa watched him go, then looked at Skyla. "He's going to do something reckless," Elesa said. "He's Ash," Skyla replied, flipping a switch to engage the afterburners. "Reckless is his middle name. We just have to make sure he survives it." The plane shuddered as it broke the sound barrier, racing the sun to the edge of the world. Chapter 5 End. Chapter 6, The Dragon's Throat. Oplucid City was a fortress of nostalgia, a place where the past wasn't just remembered, it was paved into the cobblestones. But as the Mistralton Queen touched down on the private pad behind the gym, the city felt less like a museum and more like a mausoleum. The air was already unnaturally cold. Ash descended the ramp first, his breath pluming in white clouds. He wrapped his cloak tighter. It wasn't winter. This was a supernatural chill, the kind that seeped through thermal layers and settled in the bones. "It's quiet," Skyla noted, shivering despite her flight jacket. She scanned the skyline. "Too quiet for a city this size." "Drayden cleared the streets," Iris said, stepping onto the tarmac. She looked smaller here, the looming dragon statues of the city seeming to judge her. "I sent a message ahead. He knows we're coming." They moved quickly through the empty streets. The silence was broken only by the rhythmic thud of their boots. Ash kept his hand near his belt. His aura was retracted, tight against his skin, a survival instinct. Something massive was watching them. The gym doors, massive slabs of carved stone, creaked open before they even knocked. Drayden stood in the center of the arena. The Spartan mayor of Oplucid looked like he had been carved from the same rock as his city. His beard was stark white, his muscles corded like steel cables. A Haxorus stood beside him, its tusks gleamed with polish and lethality. "You're late," Drayden rumbled. "We ran into traffic in Elesa," Ash replied, not stopping until he was face to face with the Dragon Master. "Thorn has the splicers. He has N. We believe he's heading for the giant chasm." Drayden's eyes narrowed. He looked at Iris, ignoring Ash for a moment. "And you, child? You return not as a master, but as a fugitive running with a vigilante squad." Iris flinched, but she didn't look down. She stepped forward, Axu growling on her shoulder. "I return as a warrior, Grandpa. The League didn't prepare us for this." "Ash did." Drayden studied her for a long, agonizing second. Then, he grunted, a sound of approval. "Good. You finally have iron in your spine." Drayden turned back to Ash. "The giant chasm is the destination, yes. But you cannot go there yet." "We don't have a choice," Ash argued. "They're going to kill N. If you go now, you will die," Drayden stated flatly. "You defeated a League. You fought some hunters. But you have not faced the void. The original dragon isn't a Pokemon, Ketchum. It is a force of nature. It requires a specific frequency to destabilize. A frequency known only to the keepers of Oplucid." Drayden walked to a pedestal in the center of the gym and pressed a hidden switch. The floor groaned, and a stone pillar rose. Embedded in it was a jagged, iridescent gem. "The Dragon Jammer," Elesa whispered, recognizing the tech. "I thought this was a myth." "It disrupts the synaptic link between the dragon and the splicers," Drayden explained. "It won't stop the fusion, but it can destabilize it long enough for a capture. You need this." Ash reached for it. Boom. The roof of the gym exploded. Debris rained down. Massive chunks of masonry smashed into the arena floor. Ash tackled Elesa, rolling her to safety as a slab of concrete pulverized the spot where she had been standing. "Ambush!" Skyla screamed, diving behind a statue. The sky above Oplucid had vanished. In its place was a swirling vortex of purple clouds and black lightning. A massive flying frigate, the plasma frigate, descended through the gloom, its cannons glowing with blue energy. But the ship wasn't the threat. Dropping from the ship, wreathed in electricity and ice, was a monster. It landed in the center of the gym, the impact shockwave knocking Drayden's Haxorus off its feet. It stood on two massive legs. One arm was a black, muscular limb channeling electricity, the other was shrouded in ice. Tubes and wires connected its back to a generator on its tail. It had Zekrum's generator, but Kurum's empty, frozen shell. Black Kurum. Valerius Thorn stood on the dragon's shoulder, held in place by magnetic boots. He wore a heavy coat and a rebreather mask. "I told you, Ash," Thorn's voice was amplified, booming through the ruined gym. "The past is obsolete." Kurum. Iris gasped, the color draining from her face. He already fused them." "Partial fusion," Drayden roared, standing up and wiping dust from his beard. "He used Zekrum's essence." Haxorus, outrage. Drayden didn't hesitate. He launched an attack instantly. Haxorus roared, eyes glowing red, and charged the black Kurum. "Pathetic," Thorn muttered. Kurum. Freeze shock. The black Kurum didn't move its legs. It simply raised its Zekrum arm. A ball of electrified ice formed in a nanosecond and slammed into the charging Haxorus. The explosion was blinding. When the light cleared, Haxorus was encased in a block of solid ice, frozen mid-roar. Drayden was thrown back against the wall, sliding down, coughing blood. "Grandpa!" Iris screamed. She raised her hand. "Dragonite! Excadrill! Go! Everyone, full assault!" Ash roared. Don't let him charge that attack again. Charizard. Crocodile. Pikachu. The gym became a warzone. Skyla, Swanna and Unpheasant took to the air, trying to flank the dragon. Elesa, Zebstrika and Emolga unleashed a thunderstorm of electricity. Ash's team launched a frontal assault. It was useless. Black Kyurem was a god. Zebstrika's thunderbolt hit Kyurem's chest and was absorbed. The Terravolt ability nullified the electricity. Swanna's Scald attack turned to snow before it even touched the dragon's skin. It's too strong. Skyla yelled, pulling her plane's emergency beacon. We can't scratch it. Thorn looked down at Ash with clinical boredom. You fight with heart, Thorn said. But heart freezes at absolute zero. Kyurem, glaciate. End this. The dragon opened its mouth. The air in the gym, the air in the entire city, stopped moving. The temperature plummeted to -100 degrees in a second. Get back. Ash screamed. He flared his aura. He pushed it to the breaking limit, creating a dome of blue energy over Skyla, Elesa, and Iris. The glaciate hit. It wasn't a beam. It was a wave of cold that rewrote physics. The gym walls turned to brittle glass. The floor became a skating rink of death. Ash's aura shield crackled, hissed, and shattered. The backlash hit him like a sledgehammer. Ash was thrown backward, skidding across the ice. He slammed into the stone pedestal, the breath driven from his lungs. His vision swam. He couldn't feel his fingers. He couldn't feel his legs. Ash. Elesa cried out, scrambling toward him. Her hair was frosted white, her movements sluggish. Thorn jumped down from Kyurem, landing softly on the ice. He walked toward the pedestal. He picked up the Dragon Jammer gem that Ash had failed to secure. I'll be taking this, Thorn said calmly. He looked at Ash, who was struggling to push himself up, blood dripping from his nose onto the pristine ice. You won't win, Ash wheezed. Thorn tilted his head. I already have. Look around you, champion. Ash looked. Oplucid City was gone. It was a glacier. The buildings were encased in ice. The silence of the grave had returned. Thorn raised a pistol. A simple, kinetic weapon. He aimed it at Ash's head. You are a variable I no longer wish to calculate. No. Iris moved. But not with a Pokemon. She threw a smoke bomb, ninja tech she had picked up from the Shadow Triad files. Poof. Thick, gray smoke filled the area. Haxorus isn't the only dragon here. Drayden's voice boomed from the shadows. The old man was standing, barely. He had released a Druddigan. Druddigan, flash cannon. The floor. The Druddigan fired a beam of steel energy straight down. The ice shattered. The floor collapsed into the ancient subway tunnels beneath the gym. Ash, the girls, and Drayden fell into the darkness. Let them go, Thorn's voice drifted down from above. The rats can scurry. The city is mine. The tunnels they ran. They ran through the dark, twisting tunnels of the abandoned metro. Drayden was limping heavily, supported by his Druddigan. Ash was being half-carried by Skyla and Elesa. Ash was in bad shape. The glaciate had done something to his aura channels. He felt hollowed out, cold from the inside. His skin was pale, his lips blue. We have to stop, Skyla panted, checking a compass. We're under the mountain range now. The thermal scans show we're clear of the immediate freeze zone. They collapsed in a maintenance junction. Iris fell to her knees, sobbing. Haxorus, he froze Haxorus. Drayden slid down against the wall. He looked old. Defeated. He will live. The ice preserves. But Oplucid is lost. Elesa was stripping off Ash's frozen coat, wrapping him in a thermal blanket from her emergency kit. Her hands were shaking uncontrollably. "Ash. Ash, look at me," she pleaded. Ash's eyes fluttered open. They were dull, the spark gone. "Failed," Ash whispered. "I failed." "Shut up," Skyla snapped, though her voice broke. She sat on his other side, rubbing his arms vigorously to generate heat. "You didn't fail. We got ambushed by a god. We're alive. That's a win." "Thorn has the jammer," Ash rasped. "He has the splicers. He has N. He has the city." He tried to sit up, but groaned and fell back. "I wasn't strong enough. Charizard couldn't even touch him." It was the first time they had seen Ash Ketchum truly broken. He wasn't just beaten, he was humiliated. The invincible warlord who had dismantled the League was reduced to a shivering boy in a tunnel. Iris stood up. She wiped her face with a dirty sleeve. She looked at Drayden. "You knew." "Knew what?" Drayden coughed. "You knew we couldn't win today," Iris accused, her voice rising. "You used yourself as bait to get us the jammer. But we lost that too." "I bought you time," Drayden growled. "Thorn is arrogant. He thinks you are dead or fleeing. He will proceed to the giant chasm to finish the ritual. He will try to fuse Reshiram next. To make the perfect dragon." Drayden reached into his coat. He pulled out a small, ornate key. "There is another way," Drayden wheezed. "The jammer was a scientific solution. But the original dragon is spiritual." He tossed the key to Iris. She caught it. "The Shrine of Zekrom," Drayden said. "In the Dragon Spiral Tower." "Ash, he has a connection to Zekrom, does he not? From the incident a year ago?" Ash nodded weakly. "I heard its voice. Reshiram and Zekrom are being forced into this fusion," Drayden explained. "They are fighting it. If you can get to the tower, if you can commune with Zekrom's lingering essence, you might be able to wake it inside the fusion. Make it fight Thorn from the inside." Psychic warfare, Elesa realized. "Instead of fighting the body, we fight the mind." "But you have to heal him first," Drayden pointed a trembling finger at Ash. "He is frozen. His spirit is shocked. If he goes to the tower like this, the dragon energy will burn him to ash." Drayden looked at the three women. "You are his anchors," the old master said. "I saw how he fought. He didn't use the shield for himself. He used it for you. That is his strength. And his weakness. If you want him to stand up, you have to give him a reason to." Drayden closed his eyes, his breathing shallow. "Go. Leave me. I will block the tunnel. If Thorn sends sweepers, they will not pass me." "No." Iris stepped forward. "I'm not leaving you. You are the champion's dragon." Drayden opened his eyes, staring at her with intense pride. "You are not a child of Oplucid anymore. You belong to the world. Go, Iris. Save the future." He slapped the ground. Drudigan roared and struck the ceiling supports. "Go." Skyla and Elesa grabbed Ash and hauled him up. Iris hesitated for one heartbreaking second, looking at the man who raised her. Then she turned and ran. Rocks crashed down behind them, sealing the tunnel. Sealing Drayden in the dark. The mountain cabin they emerged hours later on the slopes of the mountains bordering the giant chasm. The storm was raging, a blizzard kicked up by Kuram's power. They found a hunter's cabin, abandoned and half buried in snow. They kicked the door in. It was small, freezing, and empty. But it had a fireplace. Skyla got a fire going with shaking hands, using broken furniture as fuel. Charizard, who Ash had recalled to his ball, released himself. The great dragon curled up around the fireplace, using his tail to create a radiator of warmth. They laid Ash on the floor in front of the fire. He was conscious, but barely. He stared at the ceiling, silent. The loss of Oplucid, the loss of Drayden, the absolute dominance of Thorn, it weighed on the room like lead. Iris sat by the window, watching the snow. She wasn't crying anymore. Her face was set in stone. Elesa and Skyla stripped off their wet outer gear. They sat on either side of Ash. "We need a plan," Skyla said, her voice hollow. "We have a key," Iris said, not turning around. "We have to go to Dragon Spiral Tower." "Look at him, Iris." Skyla gestured to Ash. "He can't walk." He took a point-blank glaciate aura backlash. "I'm fine," Ash lied. His voice was a whisper. He tried to sit up. His arms shook and gave out. He fell back, frustration contorting his face. He slammed his fist into the floorboards. "Damn it." Elesa caught his hand. "Stop it," she said softly. "Just, stop being the hero for 1 minute." She looked at Skyla. A silent conversation passed between them. The rivalry, the banter, it was gone. They were just two women who loved a man who was trying to carry the world. "We aren't going anywhere tonight," Elesa decided. "The storm is too bad to fly. We heal. We rest. Tomorrow, we go to the tower." Skyla nodded. She moved closer to Ash, lying down beside him, pulling the thermal blanket over both of them. She pressed her body against his side, sharing her warmth. "You caught me when I fell," Skyla whispered into his ear. "Let us catch you." Elesa lay down on his other side, resting her head on his shoulder. Iris eventually moved from the window, curling up against Charizard's belly nearby. In the flickering light of the fire, amidst the howling wind and the shadow of defeat, Ash closed his eyes. He didn't feel like a champion. He felt small. But as the warmth of Skyla and Elesa seeped into him, as the rhythmic breathing of Charizard filled the room, the ice in his soul began, very slowly, to thaw. He wasn't alone. And as long as he wasn't alone, he wasn't finished. Chapter 6 End. Chapter 7, Fractured Reflections. The wind didn't howl, it screamed. It was a sound that tore through the thin wooden walls of the hunter's cabin, a constant reminder of the god-level entity reshaping the climate of Unova just a few miles north. Inside, the silence was louder than the storm. Ash Ketchum lay on a pile of furs and thermal blankets in front of the hearth. Charizard was curled around him, a massive, scaly wall of heat, his tail flame kept low but steady. The dragon's breathing was a rhythmic rumble that vibrated through the floorboards, the only thing that seemed to anchor the cabin to reality. Ash stared at the ceiling. There was a water stain there, shaped like the Unova region. He traced the outline with his eyes, finding the spot where Oplucid City should be. Gone. The thought was a shard of ice in his chest. Drayden was gone. The city was a glacier. And the man who did it, Thorn, had looked at Ash not with fear or respect, but with boredom. "You are a variable I no longer wish to calculate." Ash closed his eyes. His hands, resting on his chest, twitched. The nerve damage from the aura backlash was fading, but the cold remained. It wasn't physical. It was a void where his confidence used to be. "Drink." A bowl was thrust into his field of vision. Ash blinked, focusing. Skyla knelt beside him. She looked exhausted. Her flight suit was unzipped to the waist, revealing a gray tank top stained with soot. Her hair, usually perfect, was pulled back in a messy knot. There were dark circles under her eyes, but the eyes themselves were hard, uncompromising blue flint. "I'm not hungry," Ash rasped. His voice sounded like grinding stones. "I didn't ask if you were hungry," Skyla said, her voice devoid of sympathy. "I said drink. It's stew." Iris found some root vegetables and dried meat in the cellar. Charizard cooked it. Ash turned his head away. Give it to the Pokemon. They need the energy. Clang. Skyla slammed the metal bowl down on the floorboards, hard enough to spill some of the broth. The sound made Pikachu, who was napping on Ash's legs, jump. Get up, Skyla hissed. Skyla, don't, Elesa's voice came from the corner where she was checking their comms equipment. No, Skyla stood up, looming over Ash. I'm done watching him rot. It's been 2 days, Ash. 2 days of you staring at the roof and feeling sorry for yourself. I'm not feeling sorry for myself, Ash said, anger flickering in his gut. I'm analyzing. I'm thinking. You're mourning. Skyla grabbed his arm, the one that wasn't injured, and hauled him into a sitting position. You think you're the first soldier to lose a battle? You think you're the first commander to lose a friend? I lost a city. Ash roared, shoving her hand away. He tried to stand. He wanted to tower over her, to be the champion. But his legs, stiff and unresponsive from the cryoshock, buckled. He collapsed forward. He didn't hit the floor. Skyla caught him. She took his weight easily, her pilot's strength deceptively high. She wrapped her arms around his torso, holding him up, pressing him against her chest. I know, she whispered into his hair, the anger vanishing as quickly as it came. I know you lost it. But you didn't lose us. Stop trying to push us away. Ash trembled. He gripped her arms, his knuckles white. He wanted to scream. He wanted to break something. But all he could do was lean into her, hating his weakness, needing her strength. I can't feel the aura, Ash admitted, his voice cracking. It's static. Just noise. Without it, I can't track Thorn. I can't protect you. We don't need you to protect us right now, Skyla pulled back slightly, looking him in the eye. She reached up and wiped a smudge of ash from his cheek. Right now, we need to protect you. That's how a wingman works, you idiot. Later that afternoon, the storm broke. The wind died down to a manageable gust, though the sky remained a bruised purple. Iris opened the cabin door. A blast of frigid air rolled in, but it smelled crisp, clean. Come on, Iris said, looking at Ash. Ash was sitting in a chair by the fire, whittling a stick with a combat knife. Where? Outside. The snow is deep, but the earth is still there. Ash hesitated. He looked at Elesa, who was polishing her pokeballs with a microfiber cloth. She nodded without looking up. Ash stood, using a makeshift cane Skyla had fashioned from a broken chair leg. He limped to the door. Outside, the world was white. The mountains were majestic and indifferent to their plight. Iris walked a few yards into the snow. She didn't sink, she moved with the light-footed grace of someone who grew up in the wild. She stopped near a cluster of pine trees and sat down cross-legged in the snow. Sit, she ordered. Ash limped over and sat opposite her. The cold seeped through his pants instantly, shocking his system. You're blocked, Iris said. She wasn't looking at him, she was looking at Aksu, who was digging a hole nearby. The cold from Kurum, it didn't just freeze your body. It froze your spirit. You're afraid of the cold. I'm not afraid, Ash muttered. Liar, Iris said calmly. You're terrified. You felt what it was like to be nothing. To be switched off. And now you're scared to turn the light back on because you think he'll just snuff it out again. She reached out and took his hands. Her hands were small but incredibly warm. Drayden taught me that dragon energy isn't about control, Iris said. It's about flow. You can't stop a river. You can't stop a blizzard. You have to be the rock that the river flows around. I tried to block him, Ash said. I used a shield. Exactly. You tried to stop the ocean with a wall. It broke you. Iris squeezed his hands. Don't block the cold, Ash. Let it in. Acknowledge it. And then, breathe it out. Ash closed his eyes. He focused. Usually, his aura was a fire. Bright, hot, projecting outward. But now, when he reached for it, he felt the icy grip of the glaciate. It hurt. Let it in. He relaxed his mental barriers. The memory of the freezing wind rushed over him. The image of Haxorus turning to ice. The sensation of his own blood slowing down. He shivered violently. Breathe, Iris guided him. You are not the ice. You are the fire beneath the mountain. Find the ember. Ash dug deeper. Past the fear. Past the title of champion. Past the guilt. He found it. A small, stubborn spark. The part of him that refused to stay down in Kanto, in Johto, in Sinnoh. The part of him that climbed onto Charizard's back at 12,000 feet. He breathed out. A cloud of white vapor escaped his lips. The shivering stopped. A faint, blue glow outlined his body. It wasn't the raging inferno he usually commanded. It was quieter. Denser. Ash opened his eyes. The world looked sharper. He could hear the heartbeat of a Stantler a mile away. He could feel the sap moving slowly in the pine trees. Different, Ash whispered. Better, Iris smiled, though her eyes were sad. You were fighting with anger before. Now you're fighting with clarity. Drayden would say you're finally growing up. Ash looked at the young Dragon Master. You sound like him. Iris looked away, toward the buried south. Someone has to. If he's gone. I'm the mayor of Oplucid now. I can't be a kid anymore. Ash reached out and placed his hand on her head. You aren't alone, Iris. When we take the city back, we take it back together. Iris leaned into his touch, letting a single tear fall into the snow. Promise? Promise. Night fell, bringing a darkness so absolute it felt heavy. They conserved the lantern oil, sitting only by the light of the fire. The cabin felt smaller now, intimate. The barriers of rank and professional distance had been incinerated in Oplucid. Elesa was sitting behind Ash, a pair of scissors in her hand. Hold still, she murmured. You look like a Castelia cone that was dropped in a barber shop. Ash sat obediently. Does it matter how I look? Morale matters, Elesa said, snipping a lock of unruly black hair. If the king looks like a beggar, the army loses hope. And I need something to do with my hands. Her fingers brushed his neck, cool and soft. The sensation sent a shiver down his spine that had nothing to do with the cold. Skyla was sitting across from them, cleaning her sidearm, a heavy flare gun modified for combat. She watched Elesa work with a soft, unreadable expression. We need a new plan, Skyla said, breaking the silence. The direct assault failed. We can't outpower Thorn. We don't, Ash said. He felt lighter after the meditation with Iris. Drayden gave us the key. Mental warfare. We go to Dragon Spiral Tower. That's deep in enemy territory now, Skyla noted. The skies will be patrolled. We don't fly in, Ash said. We walk. We climb. Elesa finished the cut. She dusted the hair from his shoulders and moved around to face him. She tilted his chin up, studying his face. The bruises were fading into yellow mottling. The cut on his cheek was a scabbing line. But his eyes, the dullness was gone. They were burning again. There he is, Elesa whispered. She didn't pull away. She stayed there, her face inches from his. You scared me, Ash, she admitted. When you went down, when you stopped moving. I felt my world stop. Ash looked at her. Then at Skyla. Then at Iris, who was feigning sleep but listening intently. I dragged you all into this, Ash said softly. I almost got you killed. We chose this. Skyla put the gun down and moved closer, crawling across the furs until she was kneeling beside him. Stop taking our agency away. We aren't damsels. I know, Ash said. You're warriors. Better than me. Not better, Elesa said, her thumb tracing his lower lip. Different. We are the parts you lack. You are the fire, Ash. Skyla is the wind that spreads it. I am the lightning that directs it. And Iris is the earth that grounds it. The metaphor hung in the air, perfect and undeniable. Skyla reached out and took Ash's hand, lacing her fingers through his. Elesa took the other. We aren't just a team anymore, Skyla said, her voice fierce and low. We're a pack. If you burn, we burn. So don't you dare try to die alone again. Ash looked at them. The beautiful, terrifying, powerful women who had forsaken their titles, their safety, and their homes to follow him into hell. He felt a surge of emotion so strong it almost knocked the wind out of him. It wasn't just gratitude. It was love. Not the puppy love of his youth, but a forged, hardened bond. I won't, Ash swore. From now on, we move as one. Skyla leaned in. She kissed him. It wasn't the frantic, adrenaline-fueled kiss from the airfield. It was slow, deep, and full of promise. When she pulled back, Elesa leaned forward and kissed him too, tasting of coffee and electric static. It wasn't a competition. It was a communion. They settled down into the furs, a tangle of limbs and shared warmth. Ash lay in the middle, Skyla's head on his chest, Elesa's arm thrown over his waist. Iris snuggled against his back, safe in the center of the pile. For the first time in days, the nightmares didn't come. Dawn. Ash woke before the sun. He disentangled himself gently from the sleeping women and stood up. His legs felt strong. The pain in his ribs was a dull ache, easily ignored. He walked to the corner where his bag lay. He pulled out his hat, the League Expo hat he had worn since the start of this journey. He looked at it. It was stained, battered, and torn. He tossed it into the fire. He didn't need the symbol of the League anymore. He wasn't a Pokemon trainer trying to win a badge. He opened the heavy trunk they had looted from the hunter supplies. He pulled out a dark gray cloak made of heavy wool and a tactical vest. He strapped them on. He walked to the door. Skyla was awake. She was watching him from the pile of furs, propped up on one elbow. Going somewhere? She asked sleepily. Training, Ash said. Wake the others in an hour. We have work to do. Skyla smiled. It was a dangerous, shark-like smile. Aye, warlord. The training montage the next 2 days were not spent in rest. They were spent in hell. Day 1, physicality, Ash sparred with Charizard. No aura. No commands. Just hand-to-claw combat in the snow. He needed to retrain his body to move against overwhelming force. He was thrown, battered, and bruised, but every time he hit the snow, he got up faster. Skyla and Iris ran drills in the treeline. Skyla taught Iris how to move silently, how to use the environment to hide from aerial surveillance. Iris taught Skyla how to sense vibrations in the earth, how to predict rockslides and unstable terrain. Day 2, strategy. Elesa turned the cabin floor into a war room. Using coal to draw maps, they dissected the layout of Dragon Spiral Tower. The tower is a spiral, Elesa explained, pointing with a stick. A natural choke point. Thorn will have guards on every level. If we fight up the stairs, we bleed out before the top. We don't take the stairs, Ash said. He was doing one-armed push-ups near the fire, sweat dripping from his nose. We scale the outside. The outside? Skyla looked at the map. It's sheer masonry. And with the wind. Charizard can carry us part way, Ash said, switching arms. But for the final ascent, we climb. They won't be looking at the walls. They'll be watching the doors and the sky. We'll need gear, Skyla mused. Grapples. Pitons. We make them, Iris said. Excadrill can forge the metal. I can shape it. Day 3, the mind, they sat in a circle in the snow. Thorn is going to talk, Ash told them. He's going to try to break you. He'll tell you your life is meaningless. He'll tell you I'm going to get you killed. He already tried that, Elesa said. He'll try harder, Ash's eyes were intense. He'll use your fears. Skyla, he'll say you're grounded. Iris, he'll say you're a failure to your bloodline. Elesa, he'll say you're just a pretty face. Let him talk, Skyla cracked her knuckles. I like it when they talk. It gives me time to aim. No, Ash said sharply. You have to be ready. You have to know who you are. If you hesitate for 1 second, his shadow Pokemon will kill you. He looked at each of them. Who are you, Skyla? I am the ace, Skyla said, her voice steady. I own the sky. Who are you, Elesa? I am the storm, Elesa said, eyes flashing. I strike where I please. Who are you, Iris? I am the dragon, Iris growled. I don't break. Ash nodded. He stood up, the wind whipping his new cloak around him. He looked like a wraith of the mountain. And I am the one who is going to tear his castle down, brick by brick. He turned to the north. The purple glow of the giant chasm was brighter now, pulsing like a toxic heart. Pack up, Ash commanded. We leave now. They moved out at noon, under the cover of a fresh snowfall. They didn't look like a ragtag group of refugees anymore. They moved in a diamond formation, silent and synchronized. Ash on point, Iris watching the rear, Skyla and Elesa on the flanks. They reached the base of the Dragon Spiral Tower range by nightfall. The ancient structure loomed in the distance, twisting up into the clouds like a jagged finger accusing the heavens. It was surrounded by a camp of plasma grunts and automated defenses. Searchlights swept the snow. Ash crouched behind a boulder, his breath invisible thanks to a technique Iris had taught him. 3 perimeters, Ash whispered. Heavy armor. I can disable the outer sensors, Elesa whispered back. But I need to get close. 50 yards. I'll create a distraction, Skyla racked the slide of her flare gun. South side. No, Ash said. No distractions. We're ghosts. He looked at Iris. Can Excadrill tunnel us under the first wall? Iris grinned. Like a hot knife through butter. Do it. As Excadrill began to dig, silently melting the earth, Ash looked back at his team. They were dirty, tired, and walking into the lair of a god-killer. But as Skyla caught his eye and winked, as Elesa checked her voltage regulators with a calm hum, and as Iris patted Axu on the head, Ash realized something. He wasn't carrying the burden anymore. They were carrying it together. And for the first time since the League, Ash Ketchum didn't just feel like he had to win. He felt like he could. Let's go say hello to Zekrom, Ash whispered. They slipped into the darkness of the earth, leaving the surface world behind. The hunt was on. Chapter 7 End.